Hello everybody, welcome back to Art Symbol Studios. Before I start the video, I have an exciting announcement. I have a set of Liquitex basic acrylics. It's a set of 12 colors. We're going to have a little contest going here. I'm going to announce the winner on December 31st, and I will ship it anywhere in the world. All you have to do is be a new subscriber, leave a comment, hopefully something nice, and shoot me an email. You don't need to put anything in the email. I just need this for the pool of people and a way to get back to you. Now let's get into the video. So we are going to do a comparison of Liquitex Professional Heavy Body Acrylics and Liquitex Basic Acrylics. I'm going to do the colors match from the set that I have. Does consistency stay the same between those two? Do they blend the same? How far do they extend? Stuff like that, just so we know for a fact, professional Liquitex acrylics that much better than basics, or should you go with basics, and what is the difference? So first, let's check the color match and the opacity of the color and just kind of the pigment load. I'm not going to use any mediums for this, just a little bit of water just to kind of spread the paint around. And that's it. Everything on the left is going to be professional. Everything on the right next to it is going to be the basics. So this is our white from the professional. Let's see, how many layers do we need? So right next to it. And I just want to show you, like body-wise, the paint is pretty similar. The basics is, of course, a little bit more watery, but it still holds the shape. This one feels like it's a little bit thicker. So it's pretty good amount of paint. And this way, if I don't have any water, it's harder to spread, of course. So very little water, good amount of paint. This is on the basic side. It's also not as easy to spread. But I think if you have another layer of acrylics underneath, it's easier. I can still see the line. So I kind of want to see how many layers it's going to take to get the line out completely. So far we're on a layer 2. And again, my brush is almost dry. Layer 3. I can still see it on the basic side. So these are pretty similar from the feel and how they are performing. Maybe professional is on the third layer a little bit better, but I almost have no paint left. Okay, let's try this again. It looks like this side on the professional is just a little bit more opaque for the white, which is good for the white. So this is 4. Okay, I think we can say we kind of covered. It did take 4 layers to cover the black, but Maybe if you put like a ton of paint on top in one stroke, it will cover it up. So this two that I have, and I have a set of heavy body of, I think, 12 colors, and I bought a couple extra colors that I wanted. And in basics, I have 48, but I don't have matches for all of the colors to compare them. So I've selected the names that are very, very similar. Some of the colors are a little bit off, so I'm guessing the colors are not going to be the same, but they should be pretty close. So in this case, this one has the same pigment, so that's easy to say, yes, I am comparing. It's the same pigment-based colors. There's the same opacity. It says on heavy body is the same. It's opaque on basics. But this looks like on a heavy body, we have a little bit of a better coverage, which is usually maybe you have a little bit more pigment, as you should. This color is going to be, I think it's the same from the composition. Yes, this one is the same from the composition, but I'll point out the ones that are really not the same, but they're trying to make the same color. So this is the Light Portrait Pink. So Liquitex Professional is on the left. And we'll see if the color is the same too, right next to each other. And then we have the basics on the right. And it's the same composition, it's the same opacity, same pigments. So these two look the same to me from the opacity perspective and the color. We'll test them out for the pigment load a little bit later and how they blend together. So the next color that I have is Cadmium Yellow Medium Hue. The pigments are different from basics and professional, and the opacity is different. This says it's more opaque, and this one is semi-opaque. The color on the palette doesn't look the same, even though it says it's the same color. So I don't think it's going to be a color match. So this is professional, and this is basic. It's definitely not as opaque. And so professional looks lighter on the palette, and then it dries pretty close, if not darker. So the palette looks like this one is darker, but on when you put it on, it looks the same. It doesn't look like it is different. So they did mix it pretty well, even with different pigments. So the next color that I have is Cadmium Orange. And I don't have Cadmium Orange in basics, so I have the Cadmium Orange Hue. It is a different pigment. And again, this one on the professional side is more opaque, and the basics is semi-opaque. They look completely different. See what I mean? This was the professional. Looks even, I think it's picking it up. It looks lighter, but then it dries the same, that yellow. So this one looks completely different. Okay. So I'm gonna move this closer. It's pretty opaque. It's not like completely covering, but it is covering. And we have the basics. Yeah, it is not the same color. And it's just not the same color. It looks very transparent too on the basics side. Next one is Cadmium Red Light Hue. And these two, different opacity. The pigments are different. I think this one just has white on it, looks like. So the other two pigments are the same. So here's our professional side. It says it's opaque. It doesn't look opaque. You can see. And this is the basics. Opacity-wise, they look similar. This one looks a little warmer to me. I don't know if... Maybe we should let it dry first and see if it dries the same. But it looks a little bit, kind of a little bit lighter and a little bit more yellow. Next one I have Queen Magenta. It says it's the same pigments on this too, but a different opacity. On the professional side, it's transparent. And on the basics, it's semi-opaque. So professional, it's a pretty color. It's pretty transparent. And this is the basics. It looks different. It looks more... This looks more magenta. I don't know, this looks more dull on the professional side for some reason. Again, let's see how it dries. This looks the same as far as the transparency goes though. I don't see, it doesn't look like this. So this one, I have a cobalt blue in the professional version, and I have a hue in the basics version. The opacity, it says it's the same, but the pigments are different. It doesn't look on a palette that the color is the same, but let's see how. It's pretty opaque. It's a pretty color. It's a nice blue. Very creamy. The consistency of professional heavy body, it's almost like oil. The basics is a little bit easier to spread. Yeah, see, it doesn't look like the same color, so the hue is different. We'll see what kind of mixes it will produce from one to another. That's interesting. If you have the same, if you have cobalt blue, does that mean you have a different green with this? So let's wait for it to dry actually. Oh, can you see how more it's almost like it's more vibrant on basic side for that magenta? It's not dry at all. Let's make a mess. This one is almost like rosy, or it's gonna tone down a little bit. The next one, Ultramarine Blue. I've never seen the shade on Ultramarine before. It's usually on tallow. I think that's where you see blue shade, green shade, red shade, or something like that. This one is Ultramarine Blue green shade. And on basics, it says Ultramarine Blue. It has the same pigment information about the different opacity. It's more transparent. It's transparent on professional side. So here's our professional. Ooh. Bright. And there's our basics. The color looks the same to me, going on at least. I don't see a big difference in opacity from one to another. It looks the same. This one looks different. It looks lighter on professional side. Next one I have tallow blue, but again on heavy body professional side I have green shade, and on the basic side it just says it's tallow blue. Pigment information is slightly different and opacity is different. On the professional side it's transparent. So let's see, professional. I like this blue. Can you tell I like blue? Just in general. Oh, look at this blue, look at this blue. And the basics. It looks pretty similar. I don't know, it looks similar to me. We'll see how it behaves and mixes again between one to another. I don't see a difference. Or this one is the same. Looks the same to me. And this one you can clearly tell it's different. Moving on from the beautiful blues into the only green match that I have the tallow green blue shade on the professional side, and I have tallow green on the basic side. Pigment information is the same, opacity is different, it's transparent on the professional side. So this is our professional. It's not a very exciting blue and green. And this is basics. Color and opacity looks pretty similar to me. I wouldn't tell a difference. Fun fact. I have two separate water for different types. This one is professional. I did the same blues and stuff in here, and this one is my basics. It looks a little bit more cloudy as well, probably from the fillers. Here we have the purple. It is the same pigment information, and the transparency is completely different. One is transparent and one is opaque. So let's see. I don't know if I can tell if it's transparent, opaque. It's so much pigment in here. And it's dark. And here's the basic side. This feels like it doesn't have as much pigment as the other. I can't tell. I'm going to see if I can lift a little bit of color out to see what's underneath. I don't know. I mean, again, the transparency-wise, I wouldn't say that this is opaque. The color looks the same. Next one, I have burnt sienna. On the opacity, these guys are the same. They're different pigments from one to another. So this is the professional. And this is the basics. It looks a little darker on the basic side and a little bit more, almost like more vibrant. Opacity. I don't think it's as opaque as the professional. You can see the colors a little bit different. See, it's like almost like a little bit more red on the basic side. Okay, next one I have is burnt umber. I don't think it came with the set. The tube looks different. I may have just bought it on my own. And the basics and the professional match on the opacity and the pigment information. So let's check them out. This is the professional. And this is basics. Again, I think opacity doesn't match the other side. The color looks slightly off as well. It's almost like this has a little gray. And this is a little warmer and slightly lighter on the basic side. So this one is ivory black, and it came with the set on the professional side. I did not like that, so I went out and actually bought the Mars Black as well. But we're gonna test both of these guys. This one has the same opacity as the basics, and the pigment information is the same. So this is our professional. And basics. So it's not as black, I think, as the other one. So on the basic side, I didn't like on the professional side, it looks like there's a little bit more pigment and it covers a little bit better, but on the basic side, it just doesn't cover. I don't know how many layers I need to put on here to make it black, but it's, you see like all streakiness underneath. That's why I didn't want to use that for the painting later on for the black. So we have that with the Mars. The giveaway set has the Mars Black on it, by the way. I just looked it up. So the last one that I have is the Mars Black that I just ran out and got this for the later painting that I'm doing. It has the same pigment information and the same opacity between these two. So this is our professional side. See how black it is? Like look, even this compared to professional, Mars Black is just black. And the other one is just not as black. Same on the basic side, it's very, very black. And that's exactly what I wanted. I don't know why they put this in a set. So let's look at the colors. from different types, professional to basics, the colors are pretty similar. If you just look overall kind of at the whole picture, it doesn't, a little bit of the difference here, a little bit of the difference here on the cobalt blue, and a little bit of the difference on the oranges, or a lot of the difference on the oranges. Probably the most different color from one to another, but the rest of them look pretty similar. The opacity is pretty spot on the professional side for each tube. It does not match on the basics. In my opinion, it just doesn't do what it says on the tube from one tube to another, which is a little bit frustrating. If you don't know your colors and how they perform, you need to try them out and see if you worry about those things at all. The finish looks the same for most of these guys. It looks like it's maybe semi-gloss, something like that. And the only weird color here, the black, it is very glossy. It's not very glossy. It's kind of similar consistency for the professional line, but it's completely different on the basic side. It's matte. I don't see any gloss, and it lays down on the page very streak-free, unlike the rest of them. So it's totally different formula, I think, from any other colors that are at least here. And I think from 48 colors that I tested before, it was different from those as well. But I don't know if the rest of the colors that they have in line, if they have anything similar to that. Let's see how far they would spread. Let's test with a little bit of magenta. So this is on a professional. Kind of want to see what kind of tints almost that we can get. I mean, I took a little bit of paint. Now let's see what's the basics. So you can tell that it's a little bit different color, even though it says the pigment is the same. I don't know if I put exact the same amount. I thought I did pretty similar. You see how this is more uniform and consistent, and this has like little speckles almost that the pigment is separating, so there's not enough pigment to cover this, basically. So we can definitely say on the basic side, it's not as heavy of the pigment load than the professional side, as it should be. Let's see. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and a little bit of cobalt to see what kind of green we can get on professional side. And same yellow. The cobalt looks a little bit different, as we know, but made a little bit of a different green too. It's a little bit of a green and green. Maybe formula is not the same on my side. And how about we take a little bit of yellow and a little bit of ultramarine. And that's the professional. It's kind of an olivey again. And I'm doing the same yellow and a little bit of ultramarine. And we got a very similar green, one to another. Let's see if we can make a purple. And take a little bit of the magenta. I don't know if I have some room. A little magenta. Way too much. Yeah, we got a nice purple. Nice purple. I don't know if we have enough left. For the basics. It's a nice color. So I just want to add more pigments to see what kind of browns we can get. So this was our professional. Let's see if I add a little yellow. You should get some kind of a mud, right? So there's our brown. Probably warm it up a little more. And this is our basics. Looks like this brown a little better. I don't have enough pigment here. So maybe I do. Yeah, I do. It's kind of a walnutty brown. Let's look at the tinting power for the white. So here's our professional. I'm going to take a little bit, like a little bit more than half. I'm going to make this nice green. Do the same and take a little bit. And this looks very similar. There is a difference though that I can tell. It made this side more opaque for the professional, so I think it's just on that one. I remember how it covered a little bit better. It has just a little bit more punch to this white, it looks like. I'm gonna be working on this acrylic paper, and on the left side we're going to have professional version, and on the right side we're going to have the basics version of the same painting, and I'll tell you what I think about the paints. So here's what I think about these paints from professional to basics. I think they're definitely for different type of people. Some of the paints were inconsistent on the basic side from the labeling perspective. That's just fix it, right? Go and test your colors and just put the right information on the tube so people don't have to make guesses, or you have to know it says it's opaque, it's really transparent, stuff like that. So on the professional side, there's definitely way more pigment load than in basics. It's almost it's more difficult to control, I think. You need to know the right amount of either the medium or the water to add on the professional side, because it definitely dries a little bit darker, and it's a little bit brighter, and it covers a little bit better than the basic side. On the basic side, though, you have all these colors available for a lot more affordable price. And if you're working on some underpainting, or you just have this background for some mixed media stuff, or, you know, like light fastness and stuff and the pigments are similar from one to another. It's just really not as heavily pigmented as the professional side. And that is the major difference between these two. Consistency-wise, Heavy Body has a little bit of a different consistency. It's just heavier. It feels more like oil. It dries a little bit slower, but just a little bit slower than the basic side. Otherwise, it's pretty similar. It holds the stroke the same way. It kind of, you have enough water, it will spread similarly. You will lay down on top of each other. A little bit different from basics to professional side. For some reason, I don't know if it's the filler in the paint that makes it easier to put other colors on top. Like on the left side on the professional, that pigment that I would put on would just kind of almost like repels from the other underlayer in some cases. So that was a little bit odd how the paint behaved. I didn't see that on the basic side at all. Also on the professional side, and I don't know if I was just struggling with this pigment load from one side to another, it took a longer on professional side to complete this painting than on the basic side for some reason. But I did it second, so maybe I already kind of knew what goes where, and I'm not really playing around with anything at that point, so that then maybe have something to do with that. But yeah, I really like both sides, really, but if I'm working on something not for like sale or I'm just playing around, I would just go with basics. I wouldn't want, and I don't know, like I'll pull out my colors sometimes and go, oh, okay, this one is how much and that one is how much. So I'd probably go with basics in a lot of the cases, unless you have the specific color or you want the specific light fastness. They will, I think, behave pretty similarly, but in some cases, if you know the difference between one color to another and you know how to deal with this, I don't think it would be any issues. Like that orange on the professional side is a lot more opaque and it stands out. That one on the basic side didn't do the same job at all, but other than that, it's pretty similar, I think. What do you guys think? What side do you like better? Do you see the difference between these two or that much of a difference? And let me know which one you prefer. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, love to all, and have a great day.